Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming to our third session in our Job Club series. This session, we're going to be highlighting how to prepare for your next job and opportunity by sharing with you all some interview tips. So for today, what we're going to do is go over our presentation. We do have a really short and funny video exercise. We're going to then share some next job information. And then following that, we're going to have some additional resources and next steps. So I got the interview. Now what do? So your phone just finished ringing. You hang up the phone. It was the talent acquisition coordinator, and you got the job interview, right? So here are the steps that we're going to get into as to what follows after that call. So first, we're going to talk about giving yourself credit for getting a call back. Then we're going to get into researching interview questions. Following that, we're going to review your resume, how to do that, showing your interest, and then finally, we're going to go into how to follow up for that, or the follow-up process after your interview. So giving yourself credit. So I think this is a step that definitely goes without recognition a lot of the times, especially throughout the pandemic, right? People are shifting job careers or leaving one field and going to another, restarting their job career. So totally get into a whole different field. And so outside of the pandemic, how often do you apply for a job or reach out to a job and you hear back from someone? That could be rare, depending on what job you're applying for, what industry is in, things like that. So just the fact that you actually got a call back from a live person, giving you some type of feedback surrounding an interview or whatever the case may be, is always grounds for a celebration. So just making sure that you give yourself that small space or however large of a chance it may be to celebrate that small step, because at the end of the day, it's a small step towards your very end goal, which could be for a lot of people the end goal of another source of income to support that business plan, or to help pay for their house, or to maybe go towards that tuition, whatever the case may be. Making sure that you give yourself just that little pat on back saying, hey, I did that. This is a good opportunity for me, and I am going to prepare for that. So then we're going to lead into how you prepare for that interview, which is researching that employer and creating some interview questions of your own. So a lot of the times I think that when people go into an interview, they have so much anxiety or anxious feelings about what questions they're going to be asked, that they don't spend the time to prepare for those properly and to create a few questions of their own. So creating interview questions could be you looking up that employer online, checking their website, or going on Indeed or ZipRecruiter or LinkedIn and viewing comments on that job, or wherever case, wherever Glassdoor, wherever you go to get your information about a certain employer, going there and researching. Do your research. When was that company founded? Why? Where? By who? What's their mission statement? What are some of their ongoing projects? Do they have some of the ongoing projects in your area? Whatever the case may be, making sure that you give yourself that chance in that space to do your proper research. So then when you get to your interview time, you're not forgetting to ask questions, right? And not only does it show interest in the work, but it leaves room for you to have a conversation with the hiring manager. And remembering that an interview should be more of a conversation. Most people, I believe, who have access to this or who are with us right now, has had some type of interview in their life at one point or another. So they've experienced either a really rigid interview where it's like, this is the question, this is my response. And that's how the interview is really led. And that's the duration of it. And that's the whole culture of it. Or you've had a really good interview and you left there like, wow, that didn't even feel like an interview at all. That just felt like a conversation. It felt like I was really getting to know that person. That person was really getting to know me. I was able to bring forth my best self there. And it felt like it was more or less of a live questionnaire, but more of just an open dialogue. So remembering to prepare yourself by looking up some information, reading the job description, going online, just getting some information about the company to create those questions in order to ask those and create a leeway so then your interview isn't the typical question answer, kind of just leaves room for a conversation style led interview. So reviewing your resume, right? This is one of the single most important things you can do in preparation for that interview, because like mentioned in our first session where we talked about those transferable skills that you put on your resume, it's important here to make sure that you can comfortably talk about your past work experience and professional experience and how all of the experiences that you've had in the past can now fit and fulfill that job position that you're applying for right now. So a lot of the times people will go in and they seem one way on paper and it's completely different in person. Or they really don't have the capability, again, like in the first session, we talked about how to really translate, those skills like, hey, I was this type of worker in this industry, even though this one's completely different. I really don't know if I have the capability to. You do. Always remember that you do. You have the capability to fulfill, so long as you've had some type of personal or work experience in the past, fulfill that. You have that backing to fulfill that position, but making sure that you can comfortably talk about it with everything that you have listed on your resume. So if you had professional development experiences, make sure you can talk about those. Maybe highlight if you've had some experiences outside of the country. Those are always great to mention too, even if they were within the country. If there are different areas, so in the South or in the West Coast or wherever the case may be, making sure that you highlight everything about your experiences and on your resume so that the hiring manager has a accurate and complete depiction of exactly who they are speaking to before they actually meet that person. They'll have that information, but once you get there and they see you, it's like, oh, well, I did read this. Oh, and they've mentioned this. Now it makes sense. So now it's interview time. So you've got you're professionally dressed. So skip to the last point before we get to the first. So you've got and whatever professionally dressed means for you. It means it's a universal thing for everyone, but let's say that professionally dressed or dressing in a professional manner does not necessarily mean a full 3-piece suit all the time, right? But if you have a button up with a nice pair of slacks, a cardigan, something power colors, not so bright, something that you feel comfortable in, fits you well. You have your professional manner on, you are, what is it? What's the saying? You are dressed how you want to be addressed. So you have your pieces on. And so right before it's interview time, you may experience some of what we call interview anxiety. So a good way to combat that which is actually something we're going to talk about later on in this session as part of a tool that NextJob offers, is doing a mock interview, right? That's always a great way for you to sit down, go over projected interview questions. So looking those up, the typical or standard interview questions that almost every company will ask you, looking those up, practicing an interview, practice how to comfortably answer those questions, and then insert those questions that you, of course, made up on your own and practice that dialogue. So then it kind of combats that. So when it's time for your interview, you can just, worry about the second point, which is arriving early. I think that not only is that important to do with anything, you just arrive a few minutes early. It's especially, and I mean especially important now, especially that most of everything we're doing right now is still virtually. So of course technology works 1 second, and then the next second you're like in this like rainbow wheel of death. So you're waiting on something, your Zoom locks you out, or Teams has you like muted, or it sounds like you're like in an echo room, whatever the case may be. Arriving a few minutes early, it's always best just to get those issues out of the way. That as many technology issues, that you may be having beforehand, getting those out the way before you actually enter your interview. So your follow-up. And I believe this is a step that a lot of people miss, is actually realizing that you can contact the hiring manager or whoever you had your interview with, not only to thank them for the opportunity of giving you or allowing you to have the interview, but to also get feedback from that interview. So let's say that was your interview, and maybe you are having a stream of interviews, and you're just looking for feedback in order to know how to best present yourself in the next interview that you may be having. Reach out to that hiring manager or whoever was the talent acquisition manager or whoever conducted your interview to actually say, hey, I appreciate you so much for giving me the opportunity to interview for this company or for your company. What is some of the feedback that I could or you could give me so that I can carry with me throughout my next interview process, or just in any interview process in general, right? So not only is that really good for you to get that feedback in order so you can make some internal changes as to how you show up in your interviews, but also it kind of gives that manager like, hey, they called and they're asking about feedback and they're thanking us for the opportunity. I really like this person. They kind of seem like a probable candidate. They are kind of stepping out and showing out amongst the candidate pool, right? So it just gives you another marker of acceptability, in a sense, of showing up beyond the typical interview pool. So as mentioned before, I'm pretty sure that everyone has experienced some type of interview in their life. And the interview could have gone great, and it felt like a conversation. You really got to know the person. You were talking about food recipes and hobbies or whatever the case may have been. But here are a few examples, and I just know that no one watching this has had an interview gone quite like these that we're going to see in a few seconds. But if you have, then you can relate to these.
There's no jobs for manager, it's just for counter.
Good. I'm looking for the least possible amount of responsibility.
Mr. Huff, Mr. Jenner is ready for your interview.
Actually, we'll be interviewing as a team.
We're all in this together, and I wanted to put across the general idea rather than the details. Like, people get all hung up on details. Like, what school did I go to? How many O grades did I get? Could be like 6. Could be none. It's not important. What is important is that I am, yes?
Do you have any special skills?
Oh, yes. I do. I do voices.
What are your skills, girls?
Oh, we can dance. You mean like dancing? We're really good dancers.
Yeah!
We've come to this planet looking for intelligent life. Oops, we made a mistake.
We're happy to be in America. Don't ask for a green card.
I want you in the worst way.
Mr. Matsuhisu.
Hasi.
Moto.
Martha, can I call you Martha?
No, you may not.
Okay. Human resources lady.
It's Pam.
I'm sorry. Well, Pan.
No, my name is Pam.
Are you saying Pan or Pam?
I'm saying Pam. Yeah, I'm sorry. Who's this gentleman sitting behind you?
Hello, Ms. Lady.
I have fast food experience.
Yeah, like 20 years ago.
Do you have any experience?
No, sir, I have no experience, but I'm a big fan of money. I like it. I use it. I have a little. I keep it in a jar on top of my refrigerator. I'd like to put more in that jar. That's where you come in.
We're not generally comfortable in an office setting, I would say.
I get cooped up. Not so task-oriented. Not a workhorse.
I also get headaches from computers, so I can't be around them for too long.
I take stuff. If you're looking for a Clydesdale, I'm probably not your man.
We're slow learners, and we're not particularly good listeners. That'll be a huge problem.
We're also slow learners.
What's your policy on Columbus Day?
We work.
Really? The guy discovered the new world.
Nobody in this town works without a retainer, guys. You think you can find somebody who does, we tell you have my blessing. But I think we all know that person's not going to represent you as well as I can.
Will, our offer is $84,000 a year.
Retainer.
Let's do this, you guys are hired. You're in, unless you're like the weirdest guys ever and I don't see it.
Great.
I thank you for your time.
Actually, sir, I really need this job to impress a girl.
Will you leave now, please?
Please leave this office. We're done with this interview.
Do we get any sort of souvenir?
Get out of my office!
Hey, we tried, right?
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Get my resume.
So from watching some of those examples, I think that you all could probably get a good idea of what what I won't say a bad interview, but an interview gone wrong, right? And so, of course, the flip side to that is what is an interview going right, or what is a good interview? And a good interview, honestly, the best example of one is the one that in which you are the most prepared for and you're the most confident in. That goes to show you just the best interview that you could perform or operate in, because every interview is different. Everyone shows up differently. Everyone has different work experiences. Everyone is coming with their own personal nuances. So I'm pretty sure you can Google out there good interview examples, and there will be a few that comes up, but of course, the most natural will be just the one that you're the most prepared for and confident in. And just to mention that we are a Next Job partner, and so fast forwarding, also the best example of the best interview or a good interview will be utilizing their interview tool on the Next Job website. So if you just go back to the previous slide, there is a Next Job access code that you all could sign up using our access code that we have provided. And so you can go in, make you an account. And once you go onto their website, if you go on to the banner, the top right side is going to be the option that gives the interview tool. And so using this tool, you actually have the opportunity to, one, ignore this guy in the middle of your screen, but you actually have that opportunity to record your interview. So how we were talking about at the beginning of the session, how to do a mock interview, Next Job actually has the utilization of a tool that you can use to record yourself, right? To see yourself answering those questions, to check your mannerisms, to maybe see how your lighting in a room shows up on Teams or on Zoom or whatever platform you may be using. So it gives you a great chance to really set the tone for your interview before you get there by actually running the interview by yourself for yourself. And this concludes our session for this week. We'd like to thank you all for attending. And just to highlight that we have our last session for our jobs series next week, where we will be talking about how to manage your mental health and wellness. And remember to register using the tiny URL link at the bottom of this flyer in order to receive our recap emails, which will include the live recording sessions of all of our sessions. And also, if you all got a chance or did not get the chance to attend the community candor at the beginning of this month, we will attach a link to that and also a few job opportunities. So make sure that you all do not miss the registration link at the end of this flyer. Thank you all so much for attending and have a great evening.